I'm Jimmy Gaines, President of Texas Landowners Council.
And I'm Megan Kennedy, writer of the Texas Landowner, our newsletter. Texas has some of the most beautiful springs, and they are source of some of the most beautiful streams. Texas also has a vast amount of beautiful rural land dependent on the aquifers that supply Texas springs for water.
The water flowing in Texas rivers and streams comes from rainfall that filters into the earth, filling underground aquifers and flowing out through streams. Failure to preserve Texas aquifers will result in our streams going dry, and this has already happened in some places. Other than Comal Springs and San Marcos Springs that are protected by federal court orders, Texas springs and wells are not protected from being pumped dry.
Texas Landowners Council believes the state constitution should be amended to protect Texas springs and wells and has drafted an amendment for that purpose. Visit www.texaslandowners.org to see the proposed amendment and learn how you can help get it adopted. Now let us show you the beauty of springs in Texas.
In 1904, the Texas Supreme Court made a ruling known as the Rule of Capture, said at the time by Dallas Appeals Court Justice John Bookhout, to shock our sense of justice. Overturning the Rule of Capture is long overdue.
This is Mill Pond Park in the city of San Saba. The park holds a beautiful lake that is fed by a natural spring flowing 7 million gallons of water per day. Famous San Saban and pecan cultivator Edmund Guy Ridgeon built a dam across Mill Creek in 1875 to supply water to his garden and close neighbors. In fact, Ridgeon's Dam is still standing on Mill Pond today and is used to house the water provided to the residents of San Saba. The water flowing from the spring is provided by the Ellenberg-San Saba Aquifer. The Ellenberg Aquifer also provides a base flow to San Saba streams. Hancock Springs in Lampasas, Texas, has a spring that flows an average of 70 gallons per second. The spring's water is collected in a nearby pool that has a heavy sulfuric smell. But don't be hesitant to go for a swim. The high mineral content of the water has actually been believed to have healing properties. Behind me are the San Felipe Springs, located in Valverde County on the outskirts of Del Rio, Texas. They are the fourth largest springs in Texas, and they flow around 80 million gallons of water a day. It is fed by the Edwards Aquifer, and it provides water for the entire city of Del Rio.
These waters are Las Motors Springs in Raggedville, fourth largest in Texas, flowing 14 million gallons a day. The springs are on the old trade route from Chihuahua, Mexico to San Antonio, and are located in the middle of Fort Clark. That was one of the forts established to protect the tribal Indians. We're back at Las Motors Springs in March of 2023, and the springs have slowed to a trickle. They stopped flowing from April to August in 2022 and likely will this year. Overpumping is the cause, as they did not stop during the record drought of the 1950s. Barton Springs is fed by the Edwards Aquifer, flowing 27 million gallons per day. Unlike San Pedro Springs and San Antonio, Barton Springs is not threatened with overpumping because of the rainwater captured by Mansfield Dam, greatly reducing the need to pump from the Edwards. We're standing in front of the San Marcos Springs in San Marcos, Texas. One of the best places to see that in Texas, rivers come out of the ground. You're seeing an average flow of 100 million gallons a day, the second largest in Texas. Unlike Comal Springs, the largest in Texas, San Marcos Springs did not stop flowing during the drought in the 1950s. A federal court order for the protection of endangered species living in both San Marcos and Comal limits pumping to prolong the flow of the springs. The springs form the San Marcos River, a major contributor to the Guadalupe River.
The Comal Springs and New Braunfels are the largest in Texas, flowing up to 200 million gallons per day. Here you can see a river gushing from the ground. The springs form the Comal River and are a major contributor to the Guadalupe River. Even though Comal Springs are the largest in Texas, the drought of the 1950s left the springs completely dry. It wasn't until 1996 when the listing of endangered species living in the springs and a federal lawsuit resulted in pumping limitations on the aquifer in order to prolong spring flow. I'm standing in front of San Solomon Springs, halfway between Austin and El Paso. The springs flow 24 million gallons per day, and the water is used for irrigation. Unlike irrigation from high production wells, irrigation from the natural flow of springs does not deplete aquifers. There is concern today about the potential for increasing oil and gas production in the area to dry up the springs. The oil company drilling in the area has given assurance that they will minimize any impact on the springs, but state law does nothing to prevent their being pumped dry. Here we are in Toyaville, just outside of Fort Davis. Dry land covers almost all of far west Texas, but here in San Solomon Springs, you can find a beautiful oasis, thanks to spring irrigation. This is Roaring Springs, about 80 miles northeast of Lubbock. It is supplied by the Ogallala, the biggest underground freshwater spring in the world. Today we're visiting Jacob's Well near Wimberley, Texas, one of Texas's most favorite springs. Now the spring is just down this trail, so follow me. This is Jacob's Well. This spring once flowed 14 million gallons per day. It also feeds Cypress Creek that flows through Wimberley and into the Blanco River. After going to Jacob's Well, we had to visit another Wimberley attraction, Blue Hole, also known as Cypress Creek. This favorite swimming hole has huge cypress trees that tell us this water has been flowing for hundreds of years. We need to make sure these waters are still here for future generations to enjoy.
We're back at Jacob's Well in July of 2022, and the spring has quit flowing due to overpumping the aquifer. Yes, we've had very little rain this year, but the spring did not quit flowing in the 1950s when there was far less rain than now. If it weren't for overpumping, the spring would be flowing and Cypress Creek would be flowing. Across the state, we're pumping water out of our aquifers faster than it's coming in. People are making fortunes pumping us dry, producing short-term gain and long-term disaster. We're in Salado, Texas at the Stagecoach Inn. It was built as a rest stop for travelers on the stage in the 1850s. It was built here because of the waters of a spring that are just down the hill. Let's go see how they're flowing. These are the springs that supplied the water for the Stagecoach Inn. There are several springs that supply Salado Creek, but here's one you can see very plainly where these boys are in this cool, clear water. The spring is coming out of that crevice right there.
This is the South Llano River, just outside of Junction, Texas. It flows around 48 million gallons per day, and it's never run dry in recorded history. Now, if you're from Austin, you might think that your main source of drinking water comes from Barton Springs, but actually it comes from right here. The springs on the South Llano River that then feeds into the Colorado. We're now 50 miles north of the South Llano River here at Fort McGavitt. Soldiers chose to build the fort at this location because of the abundant water flowing from a nearby spring. Let's go see it. This is Government Springs, which furnished water to Fort McGavitt in the 1800s. It is one of several springs that supplies water to San Saba River as well as the town of Menard before emptying into the Colorado. We made a stop at one of Austin's most favorite swimming holes, Krause Springs, somewhere between Austin and Marble Falls. Let's go see the beautiful springs. There are more than 32 springs on this hillside, feeding into Cypress Creek, which flows into the Colorado. The springs are believed to be fed from the sycamore sand of the Lower Trinity Aquifer. Ellen Krause built this pool in 1962 and built these stone channels to bring water to the pool. This giant cypress tree is believed to be over 1,000 years old, and it, along with all the other cypress trees, are all fed by the springs, so we gotta make sure they're still running for another 1,000 years to come. The Krause family has owned the springs for over 50 years and has made it an inviting place for people to cool off on a hot summer day and enjoy its beauty. This is the San Antonio Spring, known as Blue Hole. The abundant water from this and a nearby San Pedro Spring is the reason why Spanish settlers chose this location to build a mission in 1718. Because of excessive pumping, the springs rarely flow and were dry for most of 2018. But with little irrigation this time of the year, they are now flowing in January of 2020.
We're back now, June the 27th, 2020, and the spring that was the source of the San Antonio River is dry. Dry because dams and reservoirs have not been built to meet increased demand. The source of the river today is treated wastewater.
Comanche Springs used to flow 43 million gallons per day, and it created Comanche Creek that flowed for miles, providing life-giving water for the people and wildlife that lived around its banks. It is now dry because of a 1904 Texas Supreme Court ruling eliminating liability for damaging others by high-volume pumping of groundwater. The term desired future condition was put into Texas groundwater law in 2005 by the legislature. This allows groundwater districts to choose the condition they desire for an aquifer in the future. This is the future condition they have chosen for many areas of the state: dry springs, dry creek beds, and dry wells.
This is Santa Rosa Spring, north of Fort Stockton, flowing 1.5 million gallons a day in 2000. The spring hasn't flowed since 2017 with the excessive use of groundwater in oil field drilling operations.
Today we're taking to the sky to show you that where there's no springs, there's no streams.
This is the San Marcos Spring creating the San Marcos River. As we move above the spring, you can see there is no stream. We're looking down on Fort McGavitt, where springs form the San Saba River. 3 springs provide most of the headwaters, and others downstream add to the flow, like Mill Pond Springs that we showed you earlier. As we move above the springs, as with any Texas river, there is only dry ground. We're over the Guadalupe River at Kerrville, Texas. The river is fed by springs on the north and south forks of the river. We're now over the north fork of the river. Now we're past the last spring where the dry stream bed passes under the highway. We're above the South Llano River between Junction and Rock Springs. The springs on the headwaters flow an average of 48 million gallons per day. Now we're above the last spring where there's only the dry stream bed.
Thank you for watching.
And please help us amend the law to keep the life-giving springs of Texas flowing.